How's it going? I want to talk briefly about comparisons and how that can really work against us and leave us in a place of lack. So what I mean by that is when you compare yourself to someone else, oftentimes we do that out of insecurity because we look at what someone else is doing, and it can encourage envy, it can encourage jealousy, depending on what we're afraid to lose or what we wish we had, okay? What we want to do when that happens is, instead of feeding that energy, instead of feeding those comparisons of how much better this person is than I, or how much better I am than them, that's either way, it's not, it's very human, but it's not healthy. Let's put it that way. So when you find yourself in that role, understand that what's spawning that, I guess, or what's bringing that forward for you is insecurity. Oftentimes, even when people almost overcompensate by thinking how awesome they are versus other people, it's still a comparison, and it's a means to uplift one's own ego. So from that perspective, understand that the reason behind that, sorry, I had to adjust never mind. The reason behind that is the insecurity. I don't have to bolster my ego if I already feel good about myself. And I certainly don't have to tear someone else down in order to feel good about myself if it's genuine. Because I understand that I'm not in competition with anyone. Not that that makes me better or worse. It just means I'm allowed to be me. And when I go after something in my life, meaning when I pursue a goal or pursue a dream or whatever it is, a challenge, when I undertake a challenge, or even when I allow myself some peace and rest, it's because it's in alignment for my best and highest good. I'm not comparing that to someone else's, because this is apples and oranges out here. There are always going to be people out there prettier than me, healthier than me, happier than me, or whatever. And it's going to work in the other way too. Uglier than me, more unhappy than me, all of those things. And again, that's a very subjective thing. I would never, I wouldn't put that judgment over anyone. So understand that when you're sitting in that energy, it feels uncomfortable for a reason, because it's not a healthy energy. That doesn't mean we have to be ashamed, okay? If you find yourself feeling more miserable because you see someone else having something you wish you had, if it's something that you can attain, then work your goals in such a way that you go out and you attain it. If it's something as simple as somebody's looks or their personality, that's not yours to have. You have your own, okay? So if you feel someone is better than you over something that cannot be helped or changed, then that's a real opportunity for you to really sit with that insecurity. What made you feel you're less than? Is it somebody else putting you in competition? Maybe somebody that you care about is giving an extra amount of attention to this other person. That would then stem jealousy. However, that's all through attachment, because I can speak in my life. If I really like somebody and they're putting me in competition at this stage of my life, when we're younger and more insecure, we might fall for it. But at this stage in my life, if somebody is showing that I'm a choice, then I already take myself off the table. Because that's not how it works, right? And I don't mean that from an ego, like, you have to pick me or this, that, or whatever. No, it's just the law of attachment. When you're pining for somebody or something and it's not choosing you, then you fall into that runner-chaser dynamic. It's, if you think of magnetism, it repels. If I'm really needy and I really want this person or thing or place or whatever, the more I fixate on that or ruminate on that, the more I'm going to repel that, because I'm sitting in lack energy, and therefore I'm not attracting, because I feel I'm not enough without. I hope that makes sense. If you feel you're not enough in any situation, then chances are you're not gonna, that's almost a blockage, okay? A blockage in your own mindset that keeps you from attaining or obtaining, achieving, or at least in a flow state, let's put it that way. So, a side note, when you're sitting with that kind of energy, whether it's around goals, whether it's around people, whether it's around yourself and just not feeling like you're good enough, it helps sometimes to understand why you feel that way so that you can hold compassion for yourself. Maybe you were always told or made to feel that you were never good enough. Maybe you were always picked last. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe, I don't know, there's so many things that can happen in our youth growing up that can leave us feeling less than. So yes, it can help when we understand what created it so that we can, when we're doing our top-down approach and going through our thinking patterns, we can challenge that in our adult mind now. We can look at that and say, no, I understand why I felt that way. Because again, we may not have control over that initial trigger, that initial thought, that initial whatever comes up for us, emotion, right? But once we hit the pause button and we think about it, we have control when we put the work in of what comes next. We definitely have ownership over that, because if we're then reacting or doing unhealthy things based on our triggers and our emotions, then we're responsible for the consequences of that. So it helps to pause, to understand what's causing this, and then also to switch the narrative in a sense, change the story. Look at it from a different perspective. Tell yourself something different, because you are good enough. And you can't change. People try through surgical procedures and other things, but you can't change who you are fundamentally. I guess we can, with enough money, change how we look. But you're never going to be that other person. You're never going to have their personality. And the more you try, if you're mimicking in some form, the more you're going to repel, because it's not who you are. And this is what I meant by being authentic. It just means allowing yourself to be who you are, and understanding that that is enough. But only you can get there through the healing. And we heal by recognizing first, sitting with that energy, redefining it. Okay? Accepting that it exists, but changing it, transmuting it, if you will, into something that's more healthy for you, that doesn't have that lack state of mind, that isn't feeling like we have to compare. Because again, it's apples and oranges. Whether you feel you're better than or you're less than, we're all on our own tracks here. We're all on our own soul's journey. We may do similar things for a living, right? Or you may find yourself in the same family or whatever, doing the same task. And maybe you're better than or they're better than you, more efficient, maybe just handle things in a different way. But if you feel that there's something you want to get better at, you don't have to vilify someone else who maybe already did the work. Or maybe it does come easier for them. It happens. Because there's always going to be people that are really good at things that, those might be their strengths and maybe they're your challenges. But you have strengths too. We all have strengths. We don't want to just focus on our challenges. Yeah, that helps us grow and propel us forward, but it's not all who we are. We are a lot of things. But own your strengths too. Own your positive choices. Own the things that you have succeeded in your life thus far. Not just the things that you wish you had that you don't. Because most of those things outside of actual personality and physicality and things like that, you can achieve with the right amount of effort, with the right knowledge, guidance, willingness. And again, this happens to all of us. It does. I've had situations where maybe it was a point in my life where I was really struggling and I saw someone else who just had it so much better. And I remember being envious, saying, God, I wish that was me. And then almost going down this lack mentality of, what's wrong with me? Right? Why can't I have that? Or why has my life been thus? You name it. I think we've all been there in some capacity. But it's the healing that gets us beyond that. And those triggers are an opportunity for growth. So sit with that when it happens. Sit with why do I feel this way? And you don't have to you don't have to narrow it down to a moment in time or anything like that. It could just be, clearly I'm feeling lack. So what is the insecurity? I don't have to necessarily know why I have the insecurity, but it does help to know that I have an insecurity, because acceptance is the first step in change, in growth, evolution, healing, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we don't want to spend our whole lives just working on healing. We want to also build in other things, so that we have stuff to push back with, like, well, I created this for myself, or I'm going on an awesome vacation, so I'm not in as much lack as maybe I think I am. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but we've all had that feeling at one point or another in our life, depending on what we were dealing with in our life. Just be mindful of the energy, because when we start comparing ourselves, there's only very few situations that comparisons actually help. And for me, the only time I ever use comparisons in a productive way, honestly, is when it helps me appreciate my life more. And not at the expense of somebody else's life. Okay? It's just comparing of the blessings that I have and being really grateful for that so that I can draw in more blessings. That is the key. When we sit with lack, we don't draw in more. We're just drawing in more lack, because that's the energy we're feeding. Energy flows where attention goes, or focus, or 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So be mindful of that. We don't have to hate on anyone out here, whether they're thriving or not. We want to recognize the insecurity that brings up for us so that we can address that within ourselves. And when you address it, you heal it. And it's usually not a one and done, but it does get less and less as we go forward. And as we feel better about ourselves, the more we actually bring in for ourselves. At least that's how I found my life to go. Because I didn't grow up with much. I didn't. I had to learn these lessons. And for many of them, I didn't have anyone really teaching me per se one-on-one, but I have been blessed with many mentors in my life. So I can't complain there. And I'm very grateful for my education. Whether you consider that my formal education or just my life experiences, both have shaped me. And yours have too, regardless of what they are. You are special. We all are. You determine, though, what you do with that. So it helps when you can get to know yourself better. Don't run away from it when you realize, I don't like that I think like that. It's okay. You're human. You're fallible. If you don't like it, change it. But it doesn't happen like that. You're just like that. Sorry, that was a movie. Anyway, I hope that helps. We all run into this at some point in our life, and it's really important. We can pivot far more quickly when we recognize it, see it for what it is, and pull ourselves out of that instead of going down the rabbit hole. Okay? And recognizing I can set a goal for myself. I can work on this. If I want to finish school, I just have to keep going. I have to stick with it. If I want to, I don't know, go on vacation, I might have to plan for it. I might have to save, but I can do it. That's all of us. That's just life, okay? So own that about yourself and work with it. All right. Have a good one. I'll talk soon. Bye.